Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, we're back above 10,000. It's been a huge week for global news and crypto news. We've got a lot to get through. We are going to get into it, but I just want to start off by welcoming all the newcomers to the space. I'm starting to get a lot of these questions again about different coins and how do I buy crypto in my inbox. So for all your friends and family that are interested, or if you are new and you're watching for the first time, you can head over to nuggetsnews.com.au. We've got a range of free resources under that Learn tab there. And if you do want to accelerate your learning or get my multiple daily updates, our research reports about crypto and gold and silver, you can become a member and join our premium services as well. Now, for those of you that are asking about trading FTX, we are still running that discount. There's a link down below. This is by far, I believe, the best place to trade. They've got a range of products. We're going to talk about that Donald Trump product that they added this week. And for the more experienced traders among you, they have got that leverage, Bitcoin options, and a volatility index as well. They've recently added an Aussie dollar on-ramp, so you can transfer your dollars and get into crypto that way as well. Okay, so into the local news where the Aussie dollar actually closed at 10 or even 11-year lows this week, down below 67 cents. So the Australian economy is structurally weak. That doesn't really mean a lot to the investors because the stock market's at record highs. But obviously there's the fears around the coronavirus, which we're going to get to in just a sec. And for a more detailed look, we did do our update with Martin North this week. One of the interesting things that has to unfold is how the market is going to cope with a surge of new listings. So the property market's had this huge rebound, but now there's more people looking to sell at these high prices. So can the market absorb that? We're waiting to see how that supply and demand plays out there. But it's the role of interest rates and banks lending that's really propping up all the housing market and assets as well. And the RBA had the speech this week, and they're basically saying, they're accepting the fact that higher unemployment is countering that risk of the housing bubble. So this is kind of like what the ECB said, that you should be thankful that you've got a job and not complaining about negative interest rates and whatnot. So this is kind of the rock and a hard place that I've been talking about for years, that central banks now find themselves in, and it's going to be difficult to get out of. Now, low interest rates do open up these generational divides. So it's all well and good for the person that's got 5 investment properties and all their stocks and they're about to retire, watching all these assets go up. But for the young guy that can't get ahead, and I did a video about this week that's been extremely popular. So check that video out, the whiteboard session, if you haven't watched that one. This is why you're getting further and further behind every week. This is the generational divide they're talking about in this article here. Now, it wouldn't be another week in Australia without our banks getting into trouble, and the RBA warning about these tap and go fees. So when you tap your card at the supermarket, often that's not routed through EFTPOS. It's routed the long way using Visa and MasterCard. So these other companies and banks can collect these fees, and often the merchant will have to wear that cost, and sometimes it gets passed on to the customer. But either way, $500 million, the banks are never short of a way to make a profit there. Now, privacy, we do talk about this a lot on the channel. Web browsing histories are being given to the Australian police under these data retention powers. So it is really important to know how to keep your privacy online. I'm going to do a few more videos about how to protect your privacy and your data, because this is all being handed over to the government, to the police. Edward Snowden has spoken about this. In the US as well this week, federal agencies are collecting cell phone location data. Every time your phone is online, it is just pinging around all this information about what you're doing, and that is all being collected and stored. Now, the US government, similar story to Australia here. They want to ban encryption in the name of protecting children. So obviously it's always in the name of terrorism or protecting children. They've got to have some sort of cover, but they want to end encryption. And encryption is just mathematics. You can't ever stop mathematics and software. So just like in Australia, they find out that this is actually quite difficult to do in reality. Now, the big story is the coronavirus. If you haven't watched the video I did about how it works and what we need to worry about with viruses, I recommend you check that one out from a week or two ago. But China's reaction here, injecting $174 billion of liquidity as their markets opened limit down. Now, if you don't know what that means, there's circuit breakers in stock markets. So if a stock goes down a certain amount, they close the market. Now, they can also impose these rules where people aren't allowed to sell stocks. Now, people think that is crazy. crazy, but it happened in Australia during the GFC, the financial crisis. Australia actually locked down and banned short selling, so people that are betting the market's going to go down. You weren't allowed to do that for 8 months, and other countries obviously only had very temporary restrictions because short selling is a healthy part of the market that keeps it balanced at fair values. So these markets, they're a game, they're allowed to go up, pump money into them, but anything that makes them go down is not allowed. So the stats coming out of China, the official toll, 800 deaths, around 3,000 recovered. So that's the kind of ratio we're looking at for deaths to recoveries, and the total amount around 40,000. Now, there's been some other numbers come out, and this is where it's hard. We don't really know what to believe. And Tencent had this leak, as the title says, terrifying if true. So they're saying the total number might be closer to 154,000, even up to 25,000 in terms of a death toll. So look, that is going to come to the surface in the coming days, how bad it is. But I guess I want the take-home message for people today to understand. Don't worry about the headlines and the fear-mongering. All you have to think about is, if this is a flu that is spreading around and a lot of people are getting it, what would happen if the normal flu went around the world like that? If the vast majority of people had the flu, and when you get the flu, you are really sick for not just a day or two, it can knock you out for a week. So if every second, third person has the flu, other people can't go out and shop in public, the economy slows down, people manufacturing, it goes down that supply chain. So that's what we're starting to see now. So don't worry about the disease, the name of the disease or whatnot. Just think about how bad it is when these if everyone had the version of the flu, and that looks like it's very similar to what the coronavirus actually is. So global air freight is already having its worst year since 2009, and now we're seeing these other knock-on effects from the coronavirus. So India have announced $40 billion in fiscal injection. So rather than central banks printing money and giving it to other banks, we're now seeing this fiscal stimulus where governments are starting to spend more. And again, I covered that in this video this week. In the US, their economy is still chugging along okay. I'll continue to say it. It's the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry. So good payrolls, earnings and wage growth is going along okay. And that is why so much money is just flowing into the US stock market. But how did they pay for that record holiday spending? Well, it does appear that they are putting a lot on their credit card at the moment. A huge month there. But either way, Americans are still, the consumers, in okay shape. Now, in terms of retail, we've seen the retail apocalypse and all those store closures as people shop online, but that's now spilled into restaurants, and small restaurants are really having a collapse in foot traffic there. So one by one, this is why we're seeing all this money just flood into these tech stocks and online companies, because people just aren't getting out in the real world to shop or to buy food as much anymore. Now, Uber jumped, like we just spoke about. It's very popular to get your food delivered these days. Now, they actually lost $8.5 billion, but either way, people are just looking to the future about, how quickly is this company growing? What's the possibilities of other things that they could do in the future? This could be a really profitable stock because of the number of users they've got. And all these companies can continue to issue these junk bonds, and nobody really cares at the moment. No one's thinking about profit or loss. People just love anything with a yield. So a record amount of junk bonds have been issued. Nobody cares. People are just buying everything at the moment. Everything is going up. Now, this was a good report from the IMF, actually calling for vigilance for these very reasons, because there's been just a huge year and money inflow into all these different risky assets around the world. This chart here shows the amount of rate cuts we've had. And remember, we're not in a recession like back in 2008 and 2009. And central banks around the world are just cutting interest rates and stimulating the economy. So what is left to do if we actually enter a recession? They're going to have to print enormous amounts of money and take interest rates even lower. The Fed also said that they were worried about these asset valuations this week, and talking about the coronavirus and climate change presenting these new risks. So we know that they are going to use these scapegoats and blame someone else. They're not going to admit that they were the cause of this problem. And here we see central bank balance sheets. This is the most up-to-date version, I believe, here, and this is around $20 trillion of money that they've printed, the majority of that since the financial crisis, and that's just making its way into these asset markets. So Rabobank came out and said that central banks will save us, not just from the business cycle, which was their job, but now they're going to be able to save us from climate change and global pandemic. So look, this is the narrative that unfortunately you're going to have to get used to because the mainstream is going to push it. Now, Donald Trump did get acquitted in the Senate in its trial this week. So good news if you're a Trump supporter, and obviously we've got the election coming up. Now, FTX added a Trump index, so you can bet on the odds of him getting elected. So at the moment, that was trading around 62% chance. Now, other betting markets around the world have actually got odds higher or lower. So if you're into arbitrage, there's actually an opportunity there, and we do have that discount link down below for FTX. Now, US did launch a criminal probe into JP Morgan for gold price manipulation. It's not the first time they've been investigated, also for silver price manipulation. So these conspiracy theories continue to come true. And central banks around the world are hoarding gold, but we've also got a huge demand for ETFs. Now, the well-run ETFs are actually backed by gold in theory, and whenever people buy gold, they've got to buy more bullion and keep that in the warehouse. So pandemic fears record amounts of ETF holdings, which is great news for gold and silver believers. If you do want to trade those ETFs, eToro is the best place I recommend. I did the tutorial last week about how you can buy those gold and silver ETFs for no fees and hold them and use them as an investment, as well as the traders out there. And at the moment, I actually think the gold miners are starting to look really attractive. It's a bit like when Bitcoin has its run and then all the altcoins play catch up. I really think the GDX and the GDXJ, the mining ETFs, might have a good run. I'll probably do a dedicated video about that sometime soon. Now, the final thing I just want to mention here about those stock valuations, it's kind of funny to me when people say that Bitcoin can't have these big run-ups in price because of the halving, because the efficient market theory, suggests that everything is already priced in. But then all of a sudden, we've got the most watched stock in the world, Tesla, go up 400, 500% in a few months. Now, how can it be a perfectly priced, efficient market if something like this can happen? Now, obviously, I did a video about this during the week. I was saying I want to short this. I believe a short opportunity is coming. I did get stopped out the first couple of times. If you set your stop loss nice and tight, you can just wear a little 1 or 2% loss, because when this drops, it's going to drop hard. So you can take away that 24% profit, and it doesn't really matter that you lost 1 or 2% on the first two entries. So once again, that was a trade that I did on eToro. You can copy trades there as well these days. We are running that bonus where you do get $100 Bitcoin if you sign up. So that's only going to last for a couple more weeks. So I'd recommend you do try it out. They've got that virtual account where you can practice shorting these stocks. If we get a bubble or if we get a stock market crash, if you want to short the Aussie dollar as it goes down, you can do all that on eToro nice and easily there. So talking about other currencies now, Japan want the G7 to talk about a response to China's digital currency. So how are all the other central banks going to respond? Are they going to issue their own? Is China going to become dominant and everyone start to use their digital currency? We just don't know yet, but every government and country around the world looking like they're going to issue their own digital currency. Venezuelan retailers are fed up with their currency, the petro. So apparently it's pretty hopeless to use, being labeled as a scam, not really working there. And this is basically what I think it's going to look like for all these other government currencies when they launch them. They're going to have all sorts of technical issues. It's just not going to be what people expect. It's really hard to build something, a global sort of payments network. Australia this week did release their national blockchain roadmap. So this has been in the pipeline. This was something that I did have a little bit to do with when I was a board member of Blockchain Australia there. I am no longer a board member, so I did enjoy my time there for a year or two, and good luck to the new board. But that is what we were doing, working with the policymakers. And hopefully this is really good news for blockchain in Australia. The Indian government also had a think tank here put forward their thoughts about similar blockchain strategy. So no one wants to get left behind. And I think a year or two ago, I spoke about this, how initially the regulation and the reaction was to crack down on everything blockchain and crypto. But all of a sudden, once you start to see this money flow to a certain country, governments get FOMO and no one wants to get left behind. So all of a sudden, we've got all these national blockchain roadmaps and think tanks wanting the money and innovation to come to their countries. Similar vein of thought here, we had the SEC, crypto mum as she is known, Hester Peirce, come out and talk about this 3-year sandbox environment where a token can bootstrap, get up, and then gradually become more and more decentralized from the initial small team or token issuance. So that would be a massive step forward if anything like this is adopted, and it's probably good news for all tokens out there. Now, Ripple have partnered with a NASDAQ listed company to bolster that US-Mexico payment remittance corridor there. So if you are an XRP holder, this is good news. This is the sort of thing that I was waiting to see. Are they going to get partnerships, real world companies? Are they going to actually hold large amounts of XRP? And are they going to use the XRP token for all these payments? So if that starts to happen, I'd certainly start to become more positive on XRP, but I'm still a little bit hesitant. Let's wait and see how that plays out. Another controversial project that's in the news this week was IOTA. So a bit of a rift between the creators there, saying that you owe me all these 8 million of tokens. Now that did end up with an apology and a bit of backing off. But geez, everyone does love to jump on these, and they blow up on Reddit when we have these arguments. So look, I do think IOTA have done some good things. They've got big partnerships with the likes of Bosch and others. So IOTA is still down well over 90% from all-time highs, and it did actually have a really good week this week, despite some bad news. Craig Wright was also in the news again this week. This was the final date that he got pushed back to show us the private keys and the bonded courier. And sure enough, there was another excuse where he's now saying that the courier is actually a lawyer. So there's a lawyer, client attorney privilege there. So he can't tell us the details about what's going on there. So look, let me know in the comments below. I'm sure the BSV community are going to tell me that this is all legit, but I just don't know how you can continue to believe it. Every week there's a new excuse. And surprisingly, we've seen Coinbase actually look like they're going to add BSV. So this was a little hidden gem I found here. When you log out of Coinbase, there's a buy BSV button on their website. So BSV is having a really good day. I hope a few of you caught this as a trade when I did post this in the group earlier today. But yeah, BSV, Bitcoin Cash, we were expecting these to lead Bitcoin into the halving. So for members, I've done write-ups about this a few weeks ago and shared my thesis that because Bitcoin Cash and BSV have their hard forks before Bitcoin, they were going to outperform. And now, since the market's bottomed in December, BSV's up 320%. And Bitcoin Cash up 155%, whereas Bitcoin around 50% there. So obviously that is a fantastic trade for those of you that made it. You can trade all those on FTX on margin as well, but it's nothing better than when fundamentals, technical analysis, it all comes together for a great trading thesis. And I do believe some profits are going to be rotated out of these back into Bitcoin before that May halving. Another announcement that went a little bit under the radar yesterday was this Binance Cloud mystery. So I think they are going to launch cloud services to compete with Amazon Web Services, and they're going to try and do it in a decentralized fashion. I'm not going to talk about it in too much more detail because I do want to do a write-up on this for one of our professional reports. Over to Ethereum and the DeFi space, where Pool Together raised $1 million to continue to expand their no-loss lottery. So this is a lottery where nobody loses and you get your money, your ticket price back if you're not the winner. I've done a tutorial on this, very easy to use. If you want to check it out, just search for Pool Together tutorial. Ethereum 2.0 looks like they are going to have a client testnet out, MVP, by the end of the month, but we did get the news that the phase 0, the initial launch, is going to be pushed back till July. So that's only 4 or 5 months away. It is frustrating when they continue to kick the can down the road. A lot of projects have had these stalls, but 95% confidence that they're finally going to get that ETH 2.0, the beacon chain, where we can start to stake and earn rewards out by July. We did cross $1 billion locked in DeFi. I'm not going to talk about it. You guys know how much I love the DeFi space and all those different projects. The Bitcoin maximalists continue to hound DeFi, saying it's a joke, it's not going to work, it's laughable that they think that they're going to be able to replace banks and lending. Basically, this is what crypto has always set out to do, replace everything the banks do. But these days, we don't need banks and intermediaries to do credit histories and lending. We can have digital identity. You can build reputation and trust. As you pay back more loans, you can start to borrow more. So there are ways around this, and there's great projects working on that, and a few of them that I have invested in, and we are going to have them on the channel as well. Consensus have acquired a US broker-dealer to tokenize the $1 trillion municipal bond market. Sorry, guys, bit of a mouthful there. But once again, we're just seeing the explosion of Ethereum and all these real-world investment products that are now being issued on the Ethereum public chain. We've also got some innovation still happening on Bitcoin. Rootstock was meant to be the promised land of smart contracts on Bitcoin, but this was 5 years ago when they said this was going to happen. So obviously that's been a long time in the making. Looks like they do want to make interoperability between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and hopefully we do get some cool smart contracts on Bitcoin, but it has missed the boat in terms of those network effects and the thousands of projects that are now looking at other chains for apps. We also got Handshake launched this week. So this is the same as the Ethereum name service and other similar projects where you can lock down and buy your Bitcoin address and put a name to it. So I can buy Nuggets News, and then whenever someone sends money to that name in their wallet, it'll route that to my Bitcoin address. So I know a lot of people are going to go out and try and buy the names like Bitcoin and Google. A lot of them have already been sold or they're reserved for high prices, but you can head over to their website and bid for your name, and you should be able to get a cool name for $10 or $20 of Bitcoin there, and that it will be integrated into all the wallets and exchanges going forward. So really, really cool stuff. We won't have to deal with long addresses for much longer there. Lightning Labs also raised $10 million. They want to become the Visa of Bitcoin. There is this thought process around Bitcoin being that digital gold base layer, and then we have these other layers that allow it to become the global payment network. Either way, people are just hungry to develop in Bitcoin, whether it's Jack Dorsey developing for Lightning, or these other companies. A lot of investors want to see Bitcoin succeed. We've got 40 banks in Germany that have now got the ability to offer Bitcoin and Ethereum services. I've said it 100 times, money is going to flow into these and then into the large cap projects, into the grayscale like funds. I've got a very exciting announcement this week about some funds and something that I'm involved with. I won't say too much more there, but if you do want to get crypto into your retirement fund, your self-managed super fund, guys, do hit up New Brighton Capital. They're the sponsor of this week's technical analysis. We've got the free consultation if you want to find out if this is for you. But a lot of people are very, very happy that they've bought Bitcoin or Ethereum or other coins in their self-managed super. You can also buy your education, so your subscription to our premium reports and our community, and use that in your self-managed super fund. So partnership with New Brighton Capital, Nuggets News subscribers get a discount, and Nuggets members do get a double discount there as well. So here is the performance from the December lows when people were saying that altcoins are dead. A lot of YouTubers were talking about they've sold their alts and they've gone into Bitcoin. Every video was about Bitcoin and everyone was becoming a maximalist. And I stood pretty strong, very bullish on Ethereum, still bullish on alts. I told you that there would be another alt cycle. And here we go with altcoins up 110%. So these are the indexes that you can trade over on FTX. They've got the altcoin, the midcoin, the shitcoin index, and the dragon index for those Chinese projects. So double discount below if you are interested in investing in these coins or trading them. I simply believe that these are great products, and this is why, guys, because they are outperforming, and it's very exciting to see alts moving and Bitcoin over 10,000. So let's have a look at the charts. And let's start on the monthly time frame, and probably the most exciting bit of news that we got was at the start of the final day of the month, we did get that huge candle that closed above major monthly resistance sitting at around 9,200. So that was the first tick in the box that things had reversed. We engulfed this previous two candles. This is all really bullish technical analysis. So let's just go to the weekly chart now. We are getting pretty extended. This is turning into a monster move. We have kissed the top side of that Bollinger Band. If we go into the daily chart, even more aggressive in terms of this move off the lows, but people want the pullback, and I was one of the people that certainly took some profits and even hedged a little bit, thinking that we were going to get a bit of a pullback from up here at 9,600, where we have daily resistance, multiple touches. It did act as weekly resistance and support on a number of occasions, and we'd had a huge run. So this was an area where I did think we could get a little bit of a pullback. Now, all we got from there was just a couple of days correction. We formed another bull flag, and we have just absolutely taken off to the races again. And I think it's left a lot of people wanting that pullback, expecting that pullback, and it hasn't come yet. So what becomes really important now is that tomorrow, the weekly close, if this candle can close nice and green above 9,600, that is very, very bullish going forward. And I don't want to get overly excited and cause FOMO, but if we get all these green lights, everything lining up, it does pave the way for us to really accelerate. And I think we'd test 14,000 very, very quickly, and even gives us a chance of getting up and testing 20,000 before the halvening. Now, obviously, we don't want to chase markets and FOMO in, and I don't want anyone margin trading on 100x when markets are outside the Bollinger Bands on the weekly and the daily time frame. That does suggest that we can have a couple of days of mean reversion, or we might get some profit taking. The bearish scenario is that we do get a big wick tomorrow and we close the weekly back below here, and that would normally lead to some correction. But we know when Bitcoin gets in a bull market, it doesn't necessarily matter that we're outside the Bollinger Bands or a little bit overbought on the weekly chart. We can continue to just grind higher. And when I'm getting those messages from new investors, and we've got people joining our group, it is all very, very exciting. I hope you guys have thoroughly enjoyed the bull market this week and are making some great trades. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and I will talk to you again soon. Cheers.